Coming up next, it's MacBreak Weekly. Leo is out, but I am in, and we have a wonderful panel as usual. Myself, Lory Gill from iMore, Renee Ritchie from iMore, and also Doc Rock, the mighty Doc Rock. We're talking about current Mac operating systems, future iPhone operating systems, this year's iPhones, next year iPhones, and we all got to see the Picard trailer from COMICON. Okay, we got a little excited. Anyway, all that this time on MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 671, recorded Tuesday, July 23rd, 2019. Engage!
MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Hiring is challenging, but there's one place you can go where hiring is simple and smart. That place is ZipRecruiter, where growing businesses connect to qualified candidates. Try it free at ziprecruiter.com/MacBreak. And by Calm, the #1 app to help reduce your stress, relax your mind, and help you sleep. Get 25% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/MacBreak. And by Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans. They make the home buying process work for you. Their award-winning client service and support will help you every step of the way. Get started online today at rocketmortgage.com/MacBreak.
It's time for MacBreak Weekly with your host, who is not Leo Laporte. Leo Laporte is out and abroad. I am Andy Anatko, tech contributor to WGBH Boston Public Radio, and we are joined by our usual wonderful, wonderful panel of scholars and moderators and puzzlers, starting with, from the mighty iMore, Renee Ritchie. Renee, how are you today?
You say nice things, Andy, and I start looking behind me for someone better sitting in the wings. I'm doing really good, thank you. I always love it when you host.
Renee, if there is someone better, just push her forward. That's fine. We're not.
She's taking a nap, sadly, but she'll be on right after me.
Yes, I'm in front of a big pond here. There are at least 3 ducks that I know of that can speak more eloquently about Apple technology than I can. However, the beating all 3 of those ducks would be Lory Gill, also from iMore, managing editor of iMore. Lory, how are you doing today?
What? Oh, I was taking a nap.
It's relaxed. That rock and roll lifestyle. It's going to catch up with you.
Yeah, I know. No, it'll never catch up with me. I will always be rock and roll through and through.
That's great. Again, there are a lot of people who stopped at 27 who would argue with that, but they wouldn't argue because they're not here to argue with that. Ooh, there you go. So you took one of the available slots that opened up after a Cobain, say, or after a Belushi, say.
Yep, exactly.
That's the way to go. You jump the waiting list. But we taking my place, because I vacated my seat to take Leo's seat, is one of my favorite people to the podcast with, Doc Rock. Doc, how are you today? How are you mellowing out up there?
Aloha kakahiaka. Welcome everybody. Anyway, kakahiaka is good morning in Hawaii when you hear aloha that way instead of just the standard aloha, which could mean goodbye and I love you. And Andy, of course, you know I love to say goodbye to you and I love to tell you I love you. So therefore, all of the above. Thank you guys. I'm happy to be here.
It's nice to feel loved, and let's just to make sure we understand the full complexity of the sacrifice you're making to be on the show with us. What time is it over in Honolulu?
Oh, right now it's only 8:30ish, so not that bad. Not as bad as our other show where they make me wake up at 4:30.
Yeah, Oof. But that still counts as the crack of any hour of the morning that's in the single digits is the crack of 8 or the crack of 9. So we absolutely appreciate all of that. For a very boring summer in which not many things are supposed to be happening, a lot of interesting things kind of happened last week. Starting with Apple dumped a whole bunch of operating systems in our laps. Let's start off with iOS 12.4, a non-beta, a real thing, an actual thing. Doesn't seem, Lory, I haven't installed it because I'm usually one step behind iOS. It seems to have a couple of new features. I'm wondering if lots of people are more upset because of a feature it doesn't have, though, that we thought it was going to have in 12.4.
Yeah, so I was so sure that we were getting Apple Card in iOS 12.4, which is what came out on Monday. I had even written my letter to the editor that comes out every Sunday, or from the editor that comes out every Sunday, all about how excited I was that Apple Card is probably coming. I wasn't saying for sure, but I was like, we're it's probably coming soon. I was getting really excited about it. It's weird because I shouldn't be excited about a credit card. I know that, but I really was anticipating it, and actually, MacRumors was the first to leak the show notes before iOS 12.4 came out, and I even saw those show notes, and it didn't say Apple Card, and I thought, well, maybe they have it wrong. Maybe they don't have the right show notes. But no, as soon as the download happened, I still honestly didn't believe it. I was having conversations with the other writers at iMore, and I kept saying to everybody, have you actually downloaded it? Have you actually checked it? And because mine was still downloading, I'm just saying, come on. And no, it just never appeared. So I know that it's sort of like the prep work for it is there in iOS 12.4, but they didn't flip the switch. It's not ready for us yet. So we have to wait a little bit longer for our titanium credit card.
So you think there's going to be a 12.4.1 for the card, or do you think it's right there? It's just like an Easter egg waiting to be exploded onto our retailers?
I think it's more like an Easter egg, and it might even get a little bit of an official announcement from Apple. They might, send out a press release at 6:00 in the morning, my time, when I wake up in the morning, and will have already blown up all over the internet. It might be something a little more similar to that, where there's an official announcement, but it's just a switch that you flip on. Maybe. Is there a way to update? No, I guess they would just have to do it over the air and just kind of like in the background update it. Renee probably has a little more insight into how something like that is done on a mobile device, but I don't think it's going to require an actual software update. What do you think, Renee? Am I right? Am I wrong?
Are they going to is Apple going to sort of submarine it, or are they going to have like ads and a big like dog and pony show, or is this just going to be people are going to find a new app on their phones that allows them to suddenly get deeper in credit card debt?
No, I think it's just they want it to have, because if you send out the cards and the app isn't working, that's terrible. That's like Mobile Me, original App Store launch day, terrible. And what they want to do is make sure all the bits are on the phone, and it's all built into the wallet app, and you sign up through the wallet app, and all of those things are there now. And then when they start, they'll just flip Eddie Q will come in, he'll punch that big red button, and it'll go live on the server side. And then when you go there, there'll just be a little line saying sign up for Apple Card, and you'll tap it, and everything else, like all the metrics, the way to display all the information, all the heuristics towards better financial health will all be in place, and it'll just be the sign up process. And then I guess it's how confident they are on fulfillment, on actually getting the cards out and having the service running, how much they hype it. Like maybe they'll just let the nerds sign up right up front and make sure it's rock solid before, getting all their moms and dads involved. But if they're really sure that they can handle it, then they'll just go wide and we'll see commercials everywhere.
Yeah, that's something I really hadn't thought about before. Like Doc, have you thought about how there's a problem where this is a product that's going to be offered to everybody, including people of a certain age who know how credit cards work, and they don't necessarily think that I'm going to need to have a phone in order to make this work. I'm going to have to pair this. I'm going to have to like set up software in order to get this thing actually up and running so I can buy my Zagnut bars and my movie tickets. Is there going to have to be like some sort of like a Apple class at the Apple Store to make this work for people?
Well, first of all, thank you for pointing out that I am of a certain age. I really appreciate that.
I know. I whatever your certain age is, I'm certain times 1.2. I'm sure. So that's not.
No, I'm older than you. I know this for a fact. But anyway,
quick
You're
pause
both
for a second.
pretty.
If you're on the podcast, if you're listening to it via audio, you don't get this, but like you live like in like a sunny climate where there's nothing but sun every single day almost, and you look younger than me. So my skin is like a purplish, bluish green. That's why I would ask. I don't know that you are younger than that. I am younger than you.
No, what you're experiencing is the Spectrum decided to give me the worst connection in the world today, even though I'm always pretty clear, just because I'm going to be on MBW. So Spectrum decided that dude's kind of ugly. He's going to represent Hawaii in a bad way. I mean, I do appreciate the extra work with the lovely Sig Saying Aloha shirt, limited edition, but we're going to have to blur that mug a little bit so nobody thinks that, the people here in Hawaii look as such, because I am ill representative of that. But anyway, as far as your question goes, the funny thing is, I was up and the little software update thing popped up, and I go, yeah, man, I can set this up. I'm going to get my Apple Card. Finally, I've been making sure, all the bills are paid, all the, dots are crossed and T's are whistled. And I'm like, no card app. So I do think that they're, like Renee said, they're ready for what is going to be the titanium wave. Let me go ahead and coin that hashtag now before iMore steals it and, Renee tries to own it. Titanium wave, that is Hawaii, tsunami oriented. Titanium wave, I'm going to take that. Or we can go for the alliteration with titanium tsunami, maybe. I don't know if that works. Anyway, I do believe that there will definitely be some, what we call the mom filter. I am going to have to explain this. And I do find myself oftentimes explaining to people why they should be using Apple Pay. A lot of people are still afraid of it. And I try to explain to them that the security features are much, much better. And when you just roll up to the Whole Foods and tap your phone on a thing versus, sticking in your card and doing all the above. So part of it is going to be the education, and there will be some getting over that fear. And I think the biggest hurdle will probably be the press, the normal press. When they start to talk about it, they won't necessarily say the right stuff because they tend to do it wrong. And it requires people like us to complain and be like, no, donkeys, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I just remember my own relationship with, again, there's no bigger nerd than I, but my own relationship with depositing checks in a bank, where the first time I knew that the ATM outside of the bank can now actually accept check deposits, but something inside me said that no, give it to the nice lady or the nice young man at the counter that you can verify that, look, you could tell him, please put this money in my account, and you don't have to ask somebody, where did the $6,300 that I thought was supposed to be deposited into my account go? And I'm usually about a year behind that sort of stuff. So we might see that same sort of thing as people start to learn how to use all these tools and learn how to trust these tools. But okay, so we're going to have to wait for Apple Card. But Lory, what's in 12.4, iOS 12.4 that we're going to be grateful for?
Yeah, so there's a new way that you can transfer data from one phone to another. So when you go and get your new iPhone, you won't have to use an iCloud backup anymore to transfer that data. You can do a direct connect, not through iTunes, but you can actually, using the camera adapter, you can actually plug one iPhone into another iPhone and transfer it hardwired, or using a local Wi-Fi. When your two iPhones are set up right next to each other, it will just directly transfer that data from one to another, which I think is a really great feature for especially people whose iCloud is getting a little bit bogged down, and maybe they purposefully don't store their iTunes or their iPhone backup via iCloud, or maybe they do it on iTunes, but you won't need to have your computer anymore to do that. As long as both devices have the same Wi-Fi network going, you can do it right in the store, which will probably actually make it a lot easier for the Apple employees when customers are there and they're like, I don't know how to put all this stuff on my new phone. I did notice some questions on Twitter about that too, about, what is it transferred? Everything. It acts like a backup. It transfers everything over. You don't have to worry about re-downloading your apps or anything like that. It's the same thing as if you were using a backup to transfer the data. So it's kind of a neat new feature that I like. Some bug fixes and other things like that. I think actually one of the bigger updates that got a lot of traffic is not so much the iOS update, but the watchOS update. Is it 5.3? I think, where ECG comes to Canada, which has been they've been waiting for it. So Canadians are finally on track to having to be able to check their heart rate and making sure that it's running as it should be. Which I'm sure
Renee could finally really, really push himself to the danger zone when he's out hunting Pokemon, knowing that his Apple Watch's electrocardiogram features have his back.
I'm not an AFib, Anako. I can keep going. I'm not an AFib.
I
I just smell toast. That's all. That's normal.
I've been under like an unusually large amount of stress these last few weeks. I've had the roof torn off the top of my house and been without air conditioning, and it's been.
It was a kaiju, right? It was a kaiju
around the house. Yes, the kaiju tore the roof right off. So I had a couple of experiences where I'm just kind of sitting around, not really doing anything, and my heart just started just like pounding really hard. And I wasn't doing anything that would I wasn't even thinking of things that stressful. It would just kind of come up out of nowhere. And I every time I would put my finger on my dial, my digital crown, and hold it there and get my heart rate check and the ECG, it always came up fine. But there's something sort of soothing about, I knew I was fine, and I knew that it was all related to some of the extra stress that I was under. But just kind of being able to like get that sense of like someone else is also telling me that I'm okay. It was kind of a nice feeling. So I'm glad more people are able to access it. So Renee, next time you're feeling extra stressed out and your heart starts thumping, you'll be able to just check
those
it out.
Extra symptoms, because like you can scroll down at the end and add extra symptoms, and those are the ones I worry about. If you hit the wrong one, it says call emergency right now. Call emergency right now. So I have to be real careful.
Apple Watch. Well, I'm feeling kind of itchy. And I don't know. I mean, it's not really itchy, but it's still itchy.
I can't feel the left side of my body. How am I supposed to press the emergency button?
Yeah. So Canada and Singapore are getting the ECG features. So again, it's given how many stories that we keep getting about people giving their testimony that, and then my doctor looked me in the eye and said, thank God for that Apple Watch, because without it, you'd be dead right now. And so now it's like, congratulations, Canada and Singapore. Apple has decided that you are worthy of life somehow. So good for you.
I asked them why it was taking so long, and they have to go to like every agency, every health agency in every country, and in some cases like the EU, they could do a bunch of them at once. But it really is every agency. They have to bring up local experts. They have to present all their case studies, all their data. They have to walk everybody through all of it. And even though it's Apple, their team of medical experts, which includes like from the vice president on down, it's still a somewhat arduous process at times. And some geos are faster than others. So they try to pick the countries that they'll get the most people in the shortest amount of time, and then focus on those and try to group them together if they can. I don't know how Canada ended up with Singapore, but that's the way this one turned out.
Sister cities.
I always kind of wanted access to that data, and what I would do is like build an app where when you walk into the bar, it will kind of let you know when you walk past, someone, if their heart rate tends to perk up a little bit, so you know exactly who to say, hey, can I get, did you happen to see that last thing of Game of Thrones? Like, or do you always come here? Some kind of lame thing. But it'd be a really cool use of a social thing to walk by and, know that this person might be interested in you.
We're getting into a dystopian future right now. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet.
Getting into we've bought property in the dystopian future.
Minority Gaming Report.
Yeah. But no,
remember, Andy, you already told Lory she's out of your IPO, so I want that slot.
Again, you're perfectly welcome, and Lory, you can get back. You're always back in my good graces. I just, I flew off the handle. That was wrong. So you are just as qualified to lose an enormous amount of money on paper as any of my friends and family members are going to be. Just a little sneak preview for friends and family members there. So Apple also favored us with new betas of public betas of iOS 13 and Catalina, the new version of macOS. I'm betting, Renee, that you have done. I want to say at least 3. I don't think it's going to be more than 6 videos in total on those subjects. How close am I?
Well, I try not to do it on individual betas because like everyone panicked that there was a feature missing. You used to be able to hold your finger on a link and get open a new tab, and it was missing. So everyone thought Apple took it away. And then one of the Apple engineers goes, no, sorry, bug, our bad. It'll be back in the next version. So I try not to be too microscopic about it. I try to cover the big themes of the beta because so much can and will change during the cycle. But we're getting there step by step. And as we talked about before, this has been a hard beta. It's one of the few betas where the engineers were walking around a dub shaking their head at you if they thought you were downloading. But it is getting more and more solid. I have it on my main. I don't have it on my main Mac yet because there's some issues with Final Cut that I need fixed before I can use it. But I have it on everything else. And it is still a beta. Don't kid yourself. It is not released software. So if you need it for for family life, anything important, stay away. But it is slowly but surely shaping up for the fall.
Yeah, it's especially problematic because there's so many features that I can't wait to get my hands on.
Yes,
and even I can't find, like, I don't even want my second Mac to have these betas on it. And just to give people like one indication of exactly how tough this upgrade, this development is, one of the features of Public Beta 3 is that it gets rid of one of the worst problems of Public Beta 2. Had a little buggy wuggy in there that allowed anybody to get access to all of your secure stored passwords without having to authorize with a fingerprint or Face ID or PIN or anything. Well, whoopsie.
If they were already in your phone, they had to be in your phone already. But then once if you handed them your phone, they could get the rest of it.
So let me just say, I do have a friend that would have taken advantage of that.
Yeah. So
I want to know who's the guy that sits around and taps 20 times to figure this out.
Yeah,
I mean, like
this is
that your
how
job?
To get around
to sit around and figure these things out?
Oh no, that is exactly what you do. You want to make software cry if you're really testing software. So somebody apparently with Beta 2 did decide to, every time when it's go to the website and app passwords menu that stores the credentials that are used by web autofill. And so if you tap it, iOS is going to say, "Hi, please authorize yourself because we are a very secure phone." But if you just simply keep tapping it, tap, at some point it gives up. It says, you know what? Let's stop kidding each other that you're going to authenticate. I'm not going to play your little game, user. Okay, why don't you? If you take all the passwords you want, just like the same theory as you see the kid smoking a cigarette. If you give him a carton of passwords, he's going to get so sick he will never try to steal passwords ever again. But yeah, so somebody decided to tap and get that. So yeah, this is definitely some live ammunition inside these betas. But are you liking them so far, Renee?
Yeah, I mean, the iPad, it's a cliche at this point, but what they've done for the iPad is transformative. I'm not going to use the dreaded laptop replacement lingo because I disagree with it at its foundation. But for people who don't want a laptop, who want an alternative, but who do still need a bunch of classical computer paradigms like file system access and the ability to do more robust windowing, that all is just working terrifically well already. And if not for Final Cut Pro, I would use my iPad Pro. I do use it now for almost everything except for video editing.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. However, there are a couple of I have a couple of friends, and I think they're mutual friends of pretty much all of us that have illustrated some maybe bad points about Catalina. That Apple is definitely doubling down on security, and the way that Apple doubles down on security is by taking keys and sharp objects and tools out of the user's hands, and basically saying no, don't. If you ever want to open a door, come to us. We'll find the right key for you and open it for you. Don't try to open the doors yourselves. Jason Snell, who is, again, legendary Mac figure, Apple figure, journalist, Mac user of 6 colors, and frequent guest host on the show, was playing with Catalina and sent out a couple of tweets. I'm quoting him. After 24 hours of trying to use Catalina in earnest with all my data and apps intact, the new security features are incredibly annoying. Apps constantly asking for permission to see various folders, lots of relaunches and trips to system preferences. It's really unpleasant. I'm not doing his voice. I'm just using my own voice. At WWDC, no. It's bad enough he has to hear his own words in my voice, but let alone at WWDC, Apple's presenters said they would not prevent you from running software you wanted to run on your Mac, but these interface choices are disaffecting. A very good word from Mr. Jason Snell, editor of Macworld. It feels like my Mac is fighting my choices every step of the way, and there's not even a button to turn it all off. And this sounds really, really familiar. Windows 8. Anybody? That anytime you try to do anything, it would Windows 8 and Windows Vista. Anytime you want to do anything, it's like, do you really want to do this, or do you have to have permission in order to do this? I think that Apple even did a "I'm a Mac, I'm a PC" commercial in which they made fun of Windows Vista for asking for all these permissions. And my concern is that Catalina, this is just one aspect of the giant pain in the butt that Catalina is going to be for trying to do things for our own good, but we would much rather just play in the mud and we'll wash our hands later. We don't have to wash our hands right now. But Apple's saying, no. Eat your vegetables. Wash your hands. You're gonna put on your good pants because your grandma and grandpa are coming. But I gave you $3,000 for a computer that I would have fun with, not just to, it seems like a big problem. Like Doc, what do you think? Do you have faith that Apple will not screw this up?
Yes and no. Yes, because here's the hard part about us, our not so silent majority. Okay, those of us who know how to mess with the daemons and get in terminal and do those kind of things, we love that part about our OS because that's been there for us pretty much since day one. And back in the days from adjusting kex so that you can get hardware to work the way you wanted and doing things like that was wonderful, but that was also what was somewhat limiting to people who wanted to enjoy computers, who wanted to use it the way that we love our computers. There's other people that's always wanted to be us, but they always thought that the entry was impossible. And then so what I want to make it analogous to is there are millions of really good home cooks, myself included. And I do believe that if I had have gone to culinary school and got the actual title chef, I would wear that crown even better. And you see, and so what I think the lot of us that are here on the podcast and probably the majority of our listeners, those are the guys that have been to culinary school kind of way. Like they're the real deal chefs. And most other people using their computers are the home cooks. They really love it. They're passionate. They spend 20 hours a week in Williams-Sonoma, buying, various kits, trying recipes. They got HelloFresh or some box showing up. But we are sort of becoming the dying breed. And so they feel like they have to make a decision to make it more open to the general home cook and less chefy, so that's what's going to happen with things like, getting into your terminal, having security features, having apps that require, manipulation of gatekeeper and things like that. So it's a weird catch-22 and I'm going to miss it. I won't be wrong because I do it, not a lot of it now, but I think if it makes it easier for my family to stop calling me and asking me crazy stuff or telling me that their computer got hacked when it's just the internet stopped working, because of a DNS bug or something. My computer's hacked. I can't go to any websites. I'm like, okay, let's just try a different DNS. Yours is probably down, and so I think I will appreciate that part of it. So, yeah, I'm really gray on this issue because that's my older curmudgeon coming out. I really enjoy that getting under the hood, but I think if it opens it up for the greater good, I might be willing to eat that.
Doc, I have a completely different take on this. So it's funny. I think our general idea behind it is the same, but I think of what Apple's doing with Catalina is protecting all of the old Mac users from themselves. And this is what I mean. Macs didn't used to need antivirus, right? Nobody ever tried to attack a Mac because they weren't very popular. There weren't very many of them. But as Mac gets more and more popular, we start hearing more about exploits that are getting into our system. So I see Apple as trying to bring these old Mac users up to the current standards of your Mac isn't as safe as it used to be. I know you used to be able to get away with all this stuff and all these changes and all these downloads, but now it's different. The world is different, and you can't live in these, wonderful old times. You have to move forward, and we're going to help you by making sure that every time something opens, you actually meant for that to happen, and that it wasn't something in the background that you weren't expecting. So I'm also gray on this situation because I think it's one of the joys of the Mac is sort of our ability to kind of get inside of it and learn things about it, add things to it that, aren't straight from the App Store. But I can see how as time goes on and we hear more and more stories about attacks on macOS specifically, that there's got to be some people in the background over at Apple that are saying, okay, Mac users aren't used to this. So what do we do? What's the best way to going forward to make sure that they actually understand what's being put on their computers? And sometimes even when you delete an app, that it's actually still there on your local server or something like that. So
yeah,
it absolutely makes sense.
Renee,
here's what I want. Sorry. I'm sorry, Renee.
No, I was just gonna. Yeah, I was just going to say that I'm like right there with both of you. It's a super tough problem because the people attacking the Mac are using vectors that were traditionally used by honest, upfront, traditional programmers who wanted to hack your kernel in a way that helped you, or wanted you to sideload apps in the way that helped you, or wanted to distribute apps in a way that was or they wanted to just get their updates. Mutual friend Daniel Jalkut had a blog post up saying that he was just trying to update an app and he had to sign it with iTunes, even though it was going up with outside of the App Store, but that was the only way to get the notarization working. And that meant that everyone making an app outside the App Store is now bound, they have to go in and sign the iTunes terms of service just to distribute their app. If there's a critical bug fix, you have to make sure they're up to date with iTunes, iTunes Connect policies just to give you that update. And that is so frustrating. But at the same time, that is exactly what someone who wanted to put malware on your computer would use as an attack vector. And Apple is really caught in the middle in this world because unlike Windows has to bring Windows forward. They weren't able to make a new operating system yet, and Google doesn't have a 1970s-esque operating system. They let go of DOS. They never had DOS. They built Android fairly recently. Chrome OS is even more modern. They don't have to worry about it, and Apple is busy juggling this traditional computing base with this modern 100 million billion user base. And it is annoying. I had all those alerts. I know Apple is trying to make it so that if you have an explicit user action, like if you tap on the file, that just blasts you right through because obviously you want to do it. But if the app tries to get to that file without your permission, then whoa, access panel. And the balance is probably too tight right now. So I hope as we complain, as the Jason Snellenus complains, they'll sort of figure out that balance. But I think it's going to be real tough for the next 2 or 3 years as they try to figure all this out.
Doc, was there something else you want to say?
Yeah, I was going to say I need a couple of sound bites. So when I was in radio, we used to get guests to do liners for us, and we would use those liners in our show. So I need Lory to say, Doc, don't drink that whiskey. Put that down. You've had enough. Please do not insert another piece of grilled meat in your face, because that voice of reason is just incredible. So I'm going to send you a couple liners, and I'm going to just put them in a soundboard on my EKG on my watch. First, I don't know if this app will pass, but I'm going to make an app where my EKG passes certain things. It'd be like, dude, come on, back up from the burrito. Burrito down. Go home.
Doc,
you're full.
put that burrito down.
Very good. Well, is it getting back to Gatekeeper though? Like I was shocked to find out like a few months ago that developers can't just simply assume that the Dropbox folder is somewhere and automatically just set up a user to use the Dropbox folder. They have to be asked through kind of a stern system dialog box to go find it yourself, because I don't have permission to go and select a folder that's outside of my sandbox, which seems kind of silly. I'm scrolling here in my notes here. There was one response to Jason Snell's original tweet that kind of got to me. We're all big fans of James Thompson, creator of PC Cal, creator of that wonderful dice game that we were all like embarrassing him, saying, "Oh my God, this is so great! Oh my God, James, I want to bury your children, James. You're so wonderful." And he's like, more. Yep. And so late last year, he made a little announcement saying, "Oh, by the way, I'm not going to be updating Drag Thing for the foreseeable future because I'm pulling it from the App Store. Drag Thing is this amazingly cool utility that you just drag things off of the screen and they'll be sort of like held in abeyance until you actually need them and can drag them someplace else." And so he responded to Jason's tweet by saying, "Honestly, this is all part of my decision not to rewrite Drag Thing. The writing is on the wall for system-level utilities, even if it's tolerated currently." So his feeling as a really important developer is that there's a whole bunch of system enhancements, so a whole bunch of things to make a computer work better that Apple is not going to allow developers to do, or if they're allowing them to do them right now, they can't count on that still being permitted a year from now, and that kind of bums me out, because it's developers like James Thompson who show Apple and show all of the users how cool this thing can be, and directions that you hope that Apple could go through. But unfortunately, the number of people who really want a utility like drag thing, it's not everybody, and might confuse too many people. But the people who want drag thing should be able to get it. We need to go to an ad, but before that, let's just have a quick whip round discussion. My problem with a lot of these things is that it seems as though Apple is really trying to make the Macintosh more like an iPad. And I've always really believed that there are so many advantages to having an iPad or an iPhone that is heavily sandboxed, heavily locked down. I can't sideload apps on it, but that's probably all to the good for this device. And if I do want to have a wild, wild west sort of thing where I can enter terminal commands, do whatever I want with my computer, I still have my Mac. And it seems as though Apple is sort of locking down my Mac to the same degree that they're locking down iOS. And do you think that there are lines that Apple shouldn't cross in terms of limiting? I'll put it this way: limiting the amount of danger a user can put themselves in by foolish acts of bravado and command line devilry. Renee, we'll start with you, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to quote, the oft-quotable John Gruber, where he said the lightness of iOS is what should let the Mac be heavy. And I think the ability to have an iOS device, if that is what you want, should allow, the Mac to be highly differentiated in a way that a traditional open computing system should be. But at the same time, I realize that if people start getting viruses and malware and ransomware left and right, it's not going to be good either. So what I would just like is to have all this stuff in place, but instead of these complex, and I say this as someone not responsible for implementing any of it, of course, is the ability to just hit an expert button or put in up, down, down, left, right, A, B, and go into expert mode and then have all of this stuff disappear. And I've signed my name saying I'm a grown ass adult and I'll take responsibility for it. Then all of that stuff goes away and I'm left to my own devices. It's like going into Unix mode, if that's what I want.
Yeah. Lory, what do you think?
Well, so I think that Apple absolutely should not lock down our Macs. The Mac is completely different than a mobile device like an iPad or an iPhone. There are things that we need to be able to put on our computers for our daily work. A computer is meant to be your work station. Even if you can make an iPad a workstation, a computer is meant to be that way. So Apple absolutely should not be locking us down in that same way that you can only get apps in the App Store for iPhone and iPad. But I also don't think that that's what Apple is going to do. I know there's some hints that they're making it more difficult, but I think that for some situations, people who like to just kind of casually make a fun app and they don't want to make money off of it, but it costs them too much money or too much effort to keep it going because of Apple's restrictions. That's unfortunate. And I hate the idea that there's great apps out there that won't be continued to receive updates because Apple makes it so difficult for them to just let you download it right directly from the website. But at the same time, good app developers, they understand too. They understand the importance of safety and security. And if they have the wherewithal, if they have the resources to continue, signing these certificates and stuff, it's good. It's fine. They keep doing it, and we get a second level of safety and security. So it is a balance that needs to be had so that we're protected as user, but there is a hard line, and it's that Apple should never, under any circumstance, make us only download apps from the Mac App Store because there's way too much stuff just around in the world that we need to be able to put on our computers. And if Apple takes that away from us, that's the first time I'm saying this in my life, I would have to leave Mac if that happened. So
yeah. Doc, what do you think?
I think maybe there's a possible best of both worlds solutions. So I know Leo loves to talk about his YubiKagi. Yubi is finger, Kagi is key. YubiKey. I don't know. I hate when companies use Japanese words because it messes up a Japanese speaking person. それで、別のキーも入ってるから、no. If you have a key type thing that you can purchase from Apple, or maybe even you have to physically authorize that it's you, the same way you would a credit card or something of that nature. And then they compare that to the MAC address of your computer and this key, and you plug it in. When you have those two things in place, like a second form of authentication or MFA of some sort, you plug it in the back, it says, I am Rene Ritchie, I am Doc Rock, I know what I'm doing, let me do. Then I think that would be cool, right? Similar to the way, like now on modern cars, you can't necessarily get into a lot of the engine stuff. So we go through an ODBC slot where you stick this thing in, and now you can do those, sort of racer-oriented tweaks to your vehicle. I think if we have something like that, where it actually requires some hoops or whatever to get authorized, but once you authorize and they know it's you, let me do what I want, but I'm also taking that risk, because as an ex-genius, one of the things that always kind of chapped us is when the people that thought they knew what they were doing would come in and hold something up and then come in and yell at us because it's our fault because they did something they shan't have done. So I kind of want to take the best of what Lory said about keeping us protected from ourselves, but also still give a person like me the ability to go in and mess with things accordingly. You know what I mean? So I know everyone's up in arms about not being able to change RAM half the time, but you know what happens a lot less? Bringing the computer in because it doesn't work because you bought some crappy RAM because you didn't want to buy it from OWC because it was $3 more.
Or it got unseated when you bounced around a bit.
Yeah, something like that. So I think if there's an authentication key, I can't speak English today, and you can plug that in and you've proof that you are who you are and you know what you're doing and you're willing to take the risk, go for it. I think that would be a great way to do it. It's almost like when someone leaves the hospital against medical advice, they have to sign to say that if you fall out when you get 3 steps down the road, you can't, sue Dr. Vinny Boombots because he gave you better advice.
Very, very good Ronnie Dangerfield reference. I give you 10 points for that. I see I'll try to be quick here. I just think that there is such a thing as ownership, and you either have ownership of your computer or you don't have ownership. And if you don't have the power to do anything you want with a computer, including the power to screw it up entirely, if you're doing something that is ill-advised, then it's not your computer. Apple is just giving you permission for the plum price of $1,100 to $35,000 to just use their hardware amongst certain terms of conditions that they're willing to change or rescind at any time. And I really think that ownership is an important thing. When you put those kind of handcuffs on somebody, that you kind of stifle their development. This is not my computer anymore. I want to put stickers on it. I want to change the desktop. I want to change the font size if I want to. If I want to go into, if I want to take a look at what files are in these Unix system directories and what do they do, that's curiosity and that's learning, and you can't stifle someone from learning about this thing that they have. I keep coming back to that line from The Right Stuff, where John Glenn's capsule is having problems and the Capcom is saying, you tell him he's a pilot, you tell him the condition of his spacecraft and let him make the decisions. That's how I feel. I'm not John Glenn. I'm simply a guy who was able to scratch up enough money for a MacBook Pro, but I am the pilot of this machine. Give me the information I need to take control and know the condition of my craft. So I just hope that we don't have an iOS sort of thing happening on macOS, because I don't think that the Mac will pretty much recover from that. Well, and on that note, we go to Leo Laporte, who has an important and savory message for us.
Thank you, Andy. A little break in the action while I tell you about our sponsor, great sponsor. We use this sponsor, ZipRecruiter. It's the best way to hire. Hiring is tough. Look, if you're in charge of hiring for your company, if it's a small company like ours, that means you're missing somebody. You're down a person, and that can be the worst time to have to go to all the trouble of hiring unless you use ZipRecruiter. Even giant companies use ZipRecruiter because it's just the best way to find the perfect candidate for that opening. Hiring is simple and smart on ZipRecruiter. Growing businesses can connect to qualified candidates as simply as possible. In fact, ZipRecruiter Well, as soon as you post on ZipRecruiter, put your posting on 100+ job boards, including social networks. So you cast the net as wide as you possibly can, meaning that no matter where your perfect candidate is, no matter what industry you're in, they're going to see that wonderful job opening. Hiring is tough. I mean, multiple job sites you got to post to, stacks of resumes. Reviewing those resumes, your inbox is full, your phones just don't stop ringing, or you use ZipRecruiter. All the applicants go to the ZipRecruiter interface where you can screen them easily with yes/no questions, multiple choice, even essay questions. Eliminate the candidates that don't make any sense. ZipRecruiter will not overwhelm your phone or your inbox because it's all in the ZipRecruiter interface. They even pre-format the resumes so they're all the same, so it's easy for you to scan through them. But the best part of ZipRecruiter is their powerful matching technology. ZipRecruiter scans the thousands, actually millions of resumes they have on file to find people with the right experience. Then they send an invitation to them saying, hey, there's a great job you should be applying for. As the applications come in, ZipRecruiter analyzes each one, spotlights the top candidates, so you'll never miss a great match. We found this too. As soon as we started using ZipRecruiter, we couldn't believe it. We were getting great applicants almost instantly. Lisa posted our job opening at breakfast. By lunch, we had 2 or 3 great candidates. She kept saying, wait a minute, here's another one. Another one just came in. She was so happy. ZipRecruiter is so effective that 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter will get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. We got one in the first hour. Right now, MacBreak Weekly listeners can get ZipRecruiter free if you go to our special address, ziprecruiter.com/MacBreak. Great way to show your support for MacBreak Weekly. And thank you, ZipRecruiter, for letting us do this. ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. You're going to love it, too. It saves you a lot of time. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. Now back to Andy and MacBreak Weekly.
Thank you, Mr. Laporte. Well, the fortress of integritude that Apple is famous for surrounding all of their unannounced products, it seems that someone's leaving some windows open. We've been talking for the past couple of months about features about the 2019 iPhones that we're pretty sure are going to happen. MacRumors kind of topped everybody by getting a hold of actual non-functioning dummy iPhones. These are model iPhones that have the body work, have all the fittings, have all the details on it, so that people who are manufacturing cases can officially see how these things are going to fit into these case designs. So they have the full trio, confirming that there will be a 5.8-inch, 6.5-inch, and a more affordable 6.1-inch iPhone. Just like this year, the square camera bump that we've been seeing in putative renders are certainly there. We see an extra lens on each of them. So the 2018 phones that have 2 lenses have 3, and the cheap phone that has only 1 has 2. And maybe some fit and finish is a little bit up in the air, but it really is a very credible look at what these things are going to actually be. They have a video in which they compare them physically with 2018 models, and it looks side by side like if you didn't flip them over, you wouldn't actually know you were looking at 2019 iPhones. That's a little bit surprising to me, although it is July and we're getting close enough to the announced date that a lot of dopes have to be clued in on secrets from Apple. What do you think, Doug? How did this happen? And is this a sign of a more perestroika like Apple, more hippie, peace, love? Oh, of course, take our new car for a drive. Let your aunt drive it.
Okay, first, let me start out by saying, out of no disrespect to people like Renee and Marcus, MacRumors, Gurman, everybody that does this stuff, I personally don't like the rumors and the early leaks because I am the guy who loves Christmas, right? I really miss the days of, okay, so first of all, there's a caveat. So let me put this in. It's a little selfish on my part. I happen to be born on a day that iPhones always come out. Okay, so I'm September 12th. And normally within about 1 or 2 days, sometimes dead on my day, I get a new iPhone on my birthday. Renee will back me up if you go through the last 9 years, iPhones come out on my birthday. So a week later, it's in my hands. So I missed that birthday present. I got my nice, Robusto pour over done. I'm sitting there and somebody walks out on the stage and go, Doc, just for your birthday, here comes a new iPhone. And I'm like, mahalo nui loa, right? So when everyone gives away, and I try to keep this PG as possible. My dad used to tell me, you never want to go to a place where the exotic dancers were already on buff when you walked in. It would just ruin the whole surprise. Even though you know what it looks like, even though since you've been 13-year-old stealing books from your mom and your dad, whatever you're into, like you already know what's going to happen. It's not the same thing. You want that reveal. So with that said, the reality is we live in a time and space where these things come out. So in a way, I think it does help someone who, say you have a month and a half now to get your ducks in a row, pull out your little freelance work, call up your clients that owe you money to make sure that you have the cheddar in place when the phone comes. You also have a better idea if you're going to get that lilac to match Lory's hair, or something of that nature. So I see the benefits of it, and yeah, but I just missed the Christmas party. So I'm a really hard person to ask that question to, because I deeply, deeply miss waking up to announcements where we know nothing. So to this day, even at Dub, when we get to the end of the presentation and they say something that nobody saw coming, I'm like, ooh, Hercules. I really love that.
Well, Renee, I don't think Apple is really, really pleased when these things leak out. I think they also like seeing the delighted look on Doc's face as he unwraps that present, and he doesn't like it when people spoil that surprise for them either, do they?
No, and I mean, this year was particularly interesting because every year, like a few people like Marquez usually gets the models, and a couple of MKBHD usually gets the models, a couple other people. This year, like, everybody on their YouTube channel has them. There's like 19 videos on my device right now that are all queued up with, hey, I got the dummy iPhone unit. And some of them vary a little bit, like they have the black finish or they have the glass finish on top of the cameras. All pretty much the same. And I think what's happened this year is Apple has been cracking down so much on the manufacturing facilities. And I think the Information had this story where they were trying to smuggle them out using tunnels and in clothing, all that right now the biggest egress was the CAD drawings. And we've seen those pop up on Twitter for a couple of years, but now people have gotten good enough that they can take those CAD drawings and produce actual dummy units off of them. And like you said, they don't have all the details, which is why I think we see the variances. And there's a couple, maybe it's the same person, but I've seen at least a couple different people who are supplying these, and they'll offer them to you, and if you want them, a couple days later they're on your YouTube channel for like $150 or something. And we've just seen a deluge of the reporting. And I'm with Doc. I don't like the surprises being spoiled. I sort of hedge that a bit because we all know Apple's going to make another iPhone, and there's certain things that we feel like they have to make because of market conditions or competition. I like to hear the explanation. For me, the seeing the device kind of ruins it. I cover it because if something seems like dumb and incorrect and stupid, I don't want people to get upset about it or rage, about it if they don't have to. But when Tim gets up and Phil gets up and Jaws gets up and they explain why they're doing what they're doing, that to me is the fun part. So I'm okay with seeing all this stuff now, but man, it's a lot this year.
Yeah, definitely. They're mostly confirming things we've already had leaked from other sources. Before Lory gets in, I do have that story from the Information that Renee you were talking about here, basically talking about exactly this incident where the biggest discovery of how weak the security was at these factories was when somebody actually drove out of the manufacturing facility with a truckload of iPhone 5C cases. And that's when Apple decided to create this new strike task force to look into this. Apple, according to this article, once even caught factory workers, quote, digging a small tunnel in a corner of a room behind a large piece of machinery, hoping to use it to funnel stolen components to the outside. Quote, people were chipping away little by little at the wall, quote, Shawshank Redemption style, unquote. And if you've seen Shawshank Redemption, You really gotta want a case bad to use that avenue to get a case out there, and
they get paid so much for those leaks, though.
Yeah, right.
They say, well, post iPhone 5C crackdown is. They say it's working so well that, like Renee said, they quote, more leaks come from inside Apple, and quote, according to the team, and their focus is now on theft of digital assets like the CAD files that we were seeing everywhere about a month or two ago. Lory, you want to kick in on this?
I just like everybody else has been saying, I love the anticipation that comes with a new Apple device that comes out when the rumor mill gets started, and first you're hearing about different screen types, and then you're hearing about a new camera spec and removal of a home button or all these things. Like when it starts and it's all in this sort of rumor sort of aspect, and you just don't know what to believe. I love that part because it builds up this great anticipation. It's like thinking that you're getting to open a present on your birthday, but you're not sure if that's what's coming, but you think and that's even more exciting. That's how it feels. But as soon as we get to things that are like actual cases or actual dummies of phones, that definitely pulls the magic out of it for me, so that when the press event happens and you're sitting there and Apple is just about to announce the new iPhone and it gets announced, and then you're like, yeah, that's what it looked like for the last 25 pictures that I looked at for the last 3 months. So there it is. Nothing new. I do wish that there'd be a little bit of a backing off on us as these tech bloggers covering that level of leak. Obviously you want to cover it because it's going to get you a lot of people looking at your stuff. But if we backed off a little and we just kind of like talked about our anticipations of it, and instead we were, dissecting rumors instead, that to me is all that sort of like J.J. Abrams style, what does that mean? And we're kind of losing that sort of feeling of what does that mean when it's like, here it is right in front of you. You don't have to try to figure out what it means. So yeah.
I think the more interesting story about this is just the fact that it used to be if someone smuggled out like a pentalobe screw, and all the only information anybody got was that Apple is going to switch to security screws, you feel as though there were a lot of people inside Apple that are going to find that they're the ET clean room tunnel have been set up for their office to make sure to scrub down every single piece of evidence to see who has smuggled out that one screw. And it seems as though we're getting a lot more information these days than we used to, maybe motivated partly by the fact that if you create a video with a really good mock-up, you're going to make money off of it, which means that now there's a market to create really good mock-ups based on the latest known intelligence or visuals or animations. So maybe that's part of it.
As our good friend Jim Cramer once told us, if you can get a rumor going that Apple's going to be boring or bland or it's not going to be a good iPhone, man, can you move that stock price and make your shorts?
Yep. I will say that I think there's one good thing about it. The one thing that there's, I do like the delight of being surprised by something that we didn't know a company was going to announce, or we kind of knew that this was happening, but we had no idea it was going to be this wonderful. I think the iPad certainly qualifies for that for pretty much everybody, the iPhone as well. But I'm kind of concerned that these are like luxury gadgets, even though they're really good and they're useful and they can change lives. They're still luxury gadgets, and I kind of like the idea that instead of just being shown a firework and you're being dazzled by the explosions and the colors and the flashing lights, like, oh, I gotta have it. I like the idea that they just sort of like this little light starts glowing in April or May. And it starts getting brighter and brighter and brighter, so that by the time September rolls around, it's like, yeah, it's a new iPhone. Yeah, it's pretty much what we thought it was going to be. My screen is cracked on my iPhone 8. This is probably a good year to buy. I'm I'm probably going to wait a month to make sure I can get the color and this capacity I want. I'm glad we are no longer these sort of demonic possessed people who are like, I was number one to get the new iPhone 3. I got the first one. And look, everybody interview me. I got the first one. It's like, oh, you bought a phone and it's a nice phone and I'm glad you're happy. But I'm wondering if you know that the local food bank needs volunteers. I don't know. There's energy that could be applied in different places. I'm not telling you how to run your life, sir. I'm just saying. So now that we've decided that rumors are unhealthy, let's talk about some rumors. Now this was a really interesting one. So we're hearing a lot of people who are in the supply chain making speculation and coming up with some pretty good arguments about kind of components we're going to be seeing in 2020 based iPhones. One that kind of excited me was in BGR. They headlined their story with there's a headline: Apple's iPhone 12 will pack a processor unlike anything else in the industry. This here referring to a report in Digitimes that was kind of submarined in the CEO of TSMC, a chip manufacturer who builds the A series processors for Apple's devices, was doing a Q&A at an investor conference and said that, oh well, most of their stuff is like 7 nanometer CPUs, and they announced last year they're on a timeline to create get up to speed on 5 nanometer CPU fabrication. And during this Q&A said, yeah, we're actually being a lot more aggressive about that, and we're pretty sure we're going to be able to ship 5 nanometer CPUs in quantity to our people in the next 9 or 10 months, so early 2020, which would make you think that maybe the A14, the A14X CPU that you would expect to be in the iPads and the top iPhones of 2020 will have these really, really much faster, much more compact, much more bang for the millimeter, running a lot cooler, taking up a whole lot less energy. That is intriguing. Renee, you are cursed with, like me, about having to read 100-page PDFs about nanolithography and understanding chip fab procedures. What do you think about this? Do you think that 5 nanometers is attainable in 2020 and it'll be as big a deal as BGR thinks?
Yeah, I mean, the one important thing to remember is that these are marketing terms now. We've gone away from them being literal measurements, which is why you hear about Intel's 10 nanometer process will be analogous to the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing 7 nanometer process. And you say, well, those are different nanometers. Just slow down there. But no, these are all marketing terms, and they're going to get smaller. I think Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, we're still avoiding quantum entanglement at the scale, but it could be an Ant-Man situation fairly soon. But the overall thing is that if you can fit more transistors in the same space, you get so many efficiencies, not just power, but you reduce heat. And heat is like the one enemy of all electronic components. And we've seen that with Intel now, where they've not been able to make it down to 10 nanometers for so long. In order to improve performance, they're throwing in cores, and cores are hot, and then it blows the thermal envelope of the devices that were planned to have much smaller dies in them, and it just magnifies the badness. And if Apple can keep increasing the power, the size, the complexity of the chips, while at the same time the die is shrinking, you sort of get all this stuff. I don't want to say for free because it's super hard engineering work, and I'm sure they don't feel like it's for free, but you essentially get massive gains without all the bad side effects of them. And especially if all these rumors we're hearing, and I'm sure we'll get to this about Qualcomm licenses and Intel modem businesses, if Apple can start integrating those SoCs to even if there's like a thin modem, but if they can just make more and more of the stuff smaller and smaller and more integrated, then it runs better for longer, faster, and at a lower temperature, and it's a huge win for us.
Yeah, I still remember one of the first long conversations I had with a mobile CPU engineer who said that half of our job as engineers is to design an architecture so that this CPU never runs at its full capacity. Because if it runs at its full, it could run at its full capacity for about a fraction of a second before it pops. And because it's all about power management, it's all about heat management, and so it's intriguing because. Possibly because I don't think any other company is as aware of the value of every square section of a millimeter of real estate inside an iPhone is. And so if you allow them to double the processing power in half the space, there's a lot of stuff that's on the whiteboard that gets taken off the whiteboard and gets put into production. Doc, do you get excited about lithography like this? Or is it basically something that
I used to
doesn't translate? Yeah.
No, honestly, I used to, and I think it was more exciting to me when I was able to, zero in searches force, add a socket, add a processor, change processors and things like that. Once I got into where I'm working with computers where that is no longer a thing, I don't pay as much attention to it, although I do pay attention to power consumption, power management, and some of the what did they used to call it? Very large cell integration, like when they take things and push it all into a single chip. So to me right now, still one of the most incredible chips to come out in the last couple of years has been the wireless chips that are inside, your little favorite buddy here. And I really appreciate that, from fighting Bluetooth connections here and there, and just be able to pull this guy out, slap it in my dome, and it works for hours on end. Like, I really, really love that. And so I want them to keep fostering these better and better chips. I'm not with Elon. I'm not ready to stick one in my cranium yet. But, the good thing about a chip in the cranium
it's only the electrodes. Don't worry about it. It's only the wires that fry your noodle. It's not the chips itself. Those are extra.
Well, I mean, I do believe the chip would be whiskey proof, which would allow me to drink more. So I might dive in if that's an option. But I love me a good single
Doc,
malt.
put down the whiskey.
Oh, Lory, thank you. Thank you. So I do appreciate the tech and stuff like that. I just tend to care more about like some of the things that it will do, the feature benefit more so than the tech anymore. And that might just be a sign of trying to become accustomed to the writing on the wall that Apple is going to start hiding things from us nerds.
Yeah, and Lory, that's really an intriguing notion. The idea that Apple really is all in on if we can design our own CPUs for exactly the purpose that we're aiming it at. There's nothing we can't do with not just a phone or a tablet, but also a laptop. So really, this is it is like one of the fantasy technologies. If Apple gets to run amok with a better processor die, that's the sort of thing that gets me smiling all day and all night.
Yeah, but it's really a great way for Apple to sort of maintain that kind of control that they want over everything. So like being able to sort of be the lead on this 5 nanometer technology really definitely makes a huge difference in like the future of what Apple could do. I mean, right now we're talking about everything we know that exists, but there was a time when a smartphone was not a thing, and there was a time when a tablet wasn't a thing. And so this, the potential for what you can do could get pretty big, I can't even imagine what that would be, like there's outside of, computers and tablets and smartphones, what's the next gadget that could be in everybody's hands,
Absolutely.
Or in our heads.
Yeah.
Get out of my head, man. Get out of my head.
I want them to make something that lets the food taste in the mouth to give you satiation. So, like, if I can have
tastes like chicken, Doc.
If I can have a tooth cap that tastes like Ben and Jerry's rather than actually eating that Ben and Jerry's, and it faked my brain into feeling like I don't need it, Apple could revolutionize the health industry.
Yeah.
I just need that Stephen Colbert. Oh, it'd be awesome. So I'm ready for VR taste.
Yeah, it would be, our first prototypes were to have you eat kale and it would taste like ice cream. But then we thought, what if we were just to reprogram your mind so that you enjoy kale? Wouldn't that be even healthier? So yeah, maybe there are a lot of people I don't let inside my head. 4 of them are my older sisters, and the others are tech CEOs. I should mention that I did call out this 5 nanometer article that Boy Genius Reports flagged, because it's because it's interesting, but we have to mention that this is really speculative on their part. It sort of makes sense that the manufacturer of Apple's mobile CPUs saying that, hey, we got this 5 nanometer technology. That, hey, what would that mean if they were to put this technology in 2020 iPhones? But they are also making them for 5G hardware, so that's just speculative. This next one is little more intriguing because it actually has the perfume of actual Apple involvement. A Twitter tipster. That makes he sounds like he's a drinker. So if a tipsy Twitter tipster, Ice Universe, who I'd never heard of this account, but
it's a big Samsung leaker.
Exactly. So I later on learned that he's got an okay track record when it comes to like Samsung and panel displays. Says that Apple is talking to both Samsung and LG about whether it will be feasible to build OLED displays that have the same variable frame rate technology as found on the iPad Pro, the ProMotion 120 hertz display, and see if they can make that for 2020's iPhones. That's intriguing because when you increase the frame rate, it's not necessarily more responsive, but boy, does it feel more responsive. Lory, what do you think about that? Have you used you have an iPad Pro? And
I do.
You've used it before, yeah?
Yeah. So with the iPad Pro, when it first came out, was it the year the 10.5 inch iPad Pro came out? Was that 2017?
Yeah, I think so.
It sure was an amazing changeover but when you put the two devices, one with it and one without, side by side, what an amazing difference it makes in the fluidity of what you're doing. But it's so behind the scenes that if you're just using a device that has ProMotion technology, you don't notice it. It's just there and everything is just working. It's only when you kind of backward use a device that doesn't have it that you start to notice it. The little things like when you're scrolling really fast and you get that sort of little bit of judder on your phone, it sort of like almost blinks as you're scrolling really fast. That goes away with this type of like hyper fluid sort of technology that kind of processes things on the screen super fast. The thing that I think makes what Apple's does very special and really unique and really helpful for especially the iPhone, and might be why they hadn't implemented it yet, increasing the gigahertz or the hertz up to 120 that's a power consumption. So ProMotion allows for that screen to go all the way up to 120, but also all the way down to 32. So if you're only looking at a picture on your screen, it's going to stay low and it's not going to use up so much power and it's not going to use up so much battery. If you're playing a fast graphics video game, it's going to skyrocket up to 120. It'll use up more battery, but it's going to be a lot more fluid. So having the ability to sort of maintain a little bit of battery balance while also giving you the fluidity that comes from this kind of ProMotion technology in a phone, I'm absolutely loving the idea of this. I think it'll be a really great thing if they can pull this off. I think they're talking about using LED. Yeah, that OLED panel. So this could really be a good benefit. And most of us aren't even going to really notice it unless we purposefully put two devices side by side, one with and without. But the difference really is just this nice, almost massaging of your eyes.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, Renee, it's not going to make the thing go faster, but when you spend a certain amount of money on a luxury car, the thunk of the car door just going in with one bass note really is very, very satisfying. This is kind of the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, is it the OnePlus Pro that's doing 90 hertz right now? And I know that technology is tricky with OLED, and maybe something else will fix that in the future.
The Razer 2 has 120, I think, but I don't know if they have anything that's like ProMotion, which is, again, let's ramp it up and down as necessary.
Yeah, no, I think it's the Pro that has the 90, which is a good middle ground. But for gamers, love it because it's silky smooth frame rates, makes their games look great. On the iPad, it's great for Apple Pencil, and just like Lory said, swiping between things is amazing. And once you see it on one device, you want it everywhere. Everything else suddenly looks slow and janky because human brains are terrible.
The retina effect.
Yeah, absolutely. Suddenly you see pixels you never saw before. Why are there pixels?
We were just talking about, the local newscasters after everything went to 4K, how many people were irritated because they realized they weren't as cute as they thought they were. I have to say, I do love these little things. And to go back to what Andy was talking about, one of the neat things, and, not a humble brag or anything, but I have an electric BMW. It was the i3. I just went back up to a 5 Series because I look like a circus clown in the i3. And there's real tiny little subtle things, like the guy who created the seatbelt sound went through some 2,000 iterations of a C in various note forms to get a seatbelt sound that will let you know, hey, dummy, put on your seatbelt, but not like yell at you. And I've gotten into other cars where their seatbelt sound is like, dude, put on a seatbelt. And it's like, whoa, it's like, and the BMW is like, listen, idiot, for your own safety, please put on a seatbelt. It's almost
like slightly
as if
disappointed at you.
Yeah, it's like if Lory designed the seatbelt side of the BMW. It's very calming, yet, dude, you know what I mean? Get it done. And I appreciate that. And it's a small thing. So for the screen, on my iPad Pro, yes, I definitely do. When you go back to a device that doesn't have it, or you go back to a device, like an older iPad and you're scrolling and it does that little blinky thing, it definitely, you can feel it. So I would love it if they can squeeze this into an iPhone.
Well, it's especially when the things that we expect of iPhones, we expect them to be buttery smooth. We're not expecting to see a split second of hesitation anywhere. But let's get off of rumored hardware and talk about some rumored hardware. There is a report from Digitimes that Apple might be talking with one of their main iPhone sensor suppliers, actually an American company, about providing a freaking laser beam for the 2020 iPhone, a VCSEL, vertical cavity surface emitting laser. So this would be a laser on the back of the phone that would do two things. Number one, you would make it give the main camera the ability to focus really, really fast, even in low light, because it's getting distance information from a laser. And also because the laser is giving distance information, it will obviously be a big help in augmented reality to not have to mathematically calculate the distance, the geometry between two lenses to figure out how far away an object is.
I thought you said it was for cavities. You just said it was for cavities, Andy, and now you're giving me a whole different story.
It's only for cavities for naughty little children. Good little children don't get the laser beam in their mouth. So that's also interesting. Again, it's saying that Apple is directly talking to these providers. So fits in with AR, fits in with cameras. Let's just round things out. That other things that we're expecting, not in 2019 but 2020. We're certainly expecting at least one 5G iPhone in 2020. One of the reasons why the relationship with Intel as a modem maker fell through is that Intel looked like they were not going to be able to ship 5G modem chips in time for a 2020 launch. And are we gonna guess that Lightning ports are going to the land of ghosts and winds by 2020, and at least the premium phones will go USB-C? Does that sound fair to anybody?
I want it last year, Andy, but maybe next year.
Yeah.
Maybe next year. This year sounds like either give me coffee pouring out of the Lightning port as a feature that USB-C cannot compete with, or give me that USB-C port. Because I've seen the future and it's the Files app, and I just want my stuff.
I'm still thinking.
So I have a little altar. Sorry, I have a little altar set up, and it has my tikis and my rabbit's feet and every other superstitious thing that I can think of. And there's a USB-C cable laying there, and then there's an Apple. And I'm please, for the love of everything good with tech, please, can we get that USB-C? It would just make life so much better.
Yeah, I just bought last week.
Not for my parents, for us, but not for my parents.
Exactly.
Lori, go ahead.
It would for us because we have Macs, we have things with USB-C. But the iPhone is for way more people than just people like us who are all in on Apple. And if my mom had a phone with USB-C, she wouldn't know what to do with it. So I don't think Apple's ready. I don't think we're going to see a USB-C in 2020. I think it's still going to take a little while, and it's not because Apple's not ready to do it so much as I think it's more that the world is still not ready for all USB-C all the time. There's still so many things that are USB-A that it would actually be detrimental to some people, or that's an exaggeration of the word, but it would be difficult for some people to be able to transition over. In the same way it was difficult for us to transition to USB-C, there's still so many people who aren't ready for it yet. So I'm okay with waiting a little bit longer until all computers have mostly USB-C ports, until all, external keyboards and USB or drives, external drives, almost all of them are USB-C, and it's harder to find them in USB-A form, so that it's easier for people who use an iPhone to transition into that new way of plugging it in.
I have a sweet solution for all of us. Just put the USB-C port on it, and then ship the dongle like you did with the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, and then put the dongle on the cord when you pull it out of the box. And that way, like, all our parents will just plug it in and not notice the difference, and the rest of us can just pop off that little top and go, ah.
Yes, and they actually do have little dongles like that. The only thing I think about that, Lory, is in the past, Apple has always been first to just rip the Band-Aid on connectors, and everyone else had to follow. USB itself, like Apple was first with the Bondi, iMac, to like get rid of the floppy drive, to get rid of the serial port, to get us to this USB thing. And I remember the little key span adapters that everyone had to buy in order to work their kit. So to me, it's because they're somewhat late, and the other people tend to use it as a feature to make us look dumb. And it's not. It's just a connector. I mean, for what most people are going to use it for is charging, period, point blank. Most people aren't going to use it for the other things and the accessories and stuff like that. Like you said, majority of the people simply use it for charging. So when the other manufacturers use it as a way of making us look sort of out of place, then I don't like that side of it. And I do think Renee's dongle solution is somewhat elegant because it would help the people that don't. But I also remember when we got Lightning, I remember the show specifically, Leo had a meltdown because he said, I have like 40 devices that use a 30 pin. Yeah. This is outrageous. Call Tim in here right now. I want to go down the road and give him a good piece of my mind. And like after the Lightning comes in and settles in, I don't even think he remembers having that meltdown. I almost want to look up the show number and then find that video clip to show you. He literally had a meltdown on MacBreak Weekly, and nobody even remembers 30-pin anymore. So at some point, we have to do it.
Well, I can say that, this is why Apple, they're always thinking, and they have a plan for all of us. That those of us who are thinking, but look at all of the lightning cables that I have, and I have to replace all of them. This is why they designed those cables to basically biodegrade in air, and so the coating completely falls apart within 3 months, because you're always only 2 months away from replacing a cable anyway. Why not replace it with USB-C? We need to get to another ad, but let's before that, let's end with another group question. And this is a totally unfair one. This is terrible. I should not be asking this. Given that we think we know so much about the 2019 iPhones, let's point out that Forbes senior contributor Owen Spence wrote about the rumors about the next iPhones. The article headline: "Latest details highlight Apple's boring iPhone."
I have them blocked at localhost now. Is that acceptable?
Yes. So we can charitably say we're expecting a talk release. And in 2020, even if only half of these rumors pan out, a lot of these make me think that if you can wait a year, if you don't really, really absolutely need to replace a phone, if the screen is intact, if you haven't dropped it in salt water or anything, maybe hold on to see what happens in 2020. Is this are we in a place where we're kind of recommending people to wait and see, because 2020 could be not just a tick release, but a Tickamundo release? This is my AM 1970s radio disc
my
jockey.
usual spiel on this is that this is so common right now. You see this on every channel, every site. It's going to be boring. Skip it. But the thing that a lot of us forget, like the compassion valve turns off, is that we're not normal people. We buy new phones every year, and we can say, oh, I bought the last 10 in a row, but I'm skipping this one. But most people don't act like us. We're a very special kind of nerd. Most people buy a new phone every 2 to 4 years, and even then, maybe that new phone is a hand-me-down or an aftermarket phone. We are very different from average consumers, and for them, I remember last year people were saying, oh, the iPhone XS, that's not a great upgrade from the 10, and Apple's like, we never meant it to be. The iPhone XS is meant for people who have a 6S, a 6, maybe a 6S. And this year, the 11 is going to be meant for people who have a 6S, maybe a 7. And for them, it's going to be a phenomenal update. And maybe that they don't care about a freaking laser beam on a 2020 iPhone. They just know that their iPhone is like reached the end of its life and they want some stuff. And this is when they're going to buy. And that's the iPhone they're going to buy. So to me, it's never like skip this year, wait for next year. It's like wait as long as you absolutely can. Just wait as long as you can. And then when you buy it and enjoy it, because there will always be something next.
Yes.
Yeah. And,
Lory,
and
what would you tell people? Lory, and then Doc.
And Renee is the voice of every man in this situation. And I definitely think that we always need to consider that when we get in our little bubbles and forget that the world isn't quite the way we do things. But hearing the things that are coming in the iPhone in 2020, this year for the first time, I do kind of think maybe I do just want to hold off and get that to, I might get them both anyway, but
for research purposes, for your obligations to your readers.
Right. Yes. But the things that are coming out supposedly coming out in the 2020 iPhone are phenomenal. And I would even recommend to any friend that I have right now that if their phone is still ticking and, they can still continue updating their operating system. I mean, heck, even if you can't continue updating your operating system like the iPhone SE, but you like the phone, maybe hold off until 2020 because that there's so many big things coming with that I'm more excited about next year's iPhone than I am about this year's iPhone. And I'm not usually like that. I'm usually, even when it's the 10 to the 10S, even that was like, that's a big deal. I love it. There's barely anything new, but I want it anyway. And in this case, I'm almost like, yeah, so there's going to be a new camera, but what about the 2020 iPhone?
Camera with a laser.
Okay, so the only reason why, if these renders, the Sonny Dixon dummy phones are correct, looking at the models that have the 3 lenses on the back, being old, of a certain vintage, as Andy, repeated, I just want one for the fact that the back of the camera reminds me of when you used to watch Merv Griffin, and they would pan out and you would see like the old RCA TK31s or the TK30s, and there was that giant. See, Andy laughs because he's old too. That giant camera with the 3 lenses, because you needed one for each color, and it was the beginning of the little color TV thing on dung 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 NBC. I appreciate that, and I love that design element of it, and probably for that alone, I want one, just because it reminds me that I'm an old person with a nice piece of tech in my head. But yeah, I agree with Renee. The average person does tend to hold on them longer. And last year was the first year that I didn't get an iPhone. Just randomly decided I didn't want one. And I finally know what it feels like when people complain about battery life, because I thought everyone was tripping. That's because I always had a new phone. But the year after, it starts to get horrible towards the end. So right now, my phone is slightly angry at, about 85% life. So yeah, I have to get one anyway. But if that wasn't the case, I still would probably buy one.
Yeah. No, and Renee, I'm a mutant among mutants, because this is my okay. Avert your eyes. It is an Android phone. This is a Google Pixel. I
have one
version
on the shelf right there.
Yes.
And I have the 2. I'm bad as you are.
Yeah, no, but I have to remind myself sometimes. I'm sure you guys are in this position too, where it's like, oh wow, I really want to get the new phone. Like, Andy, what do you keep telling people about buying new hardware? if it doesn't solve a problem or create an opportunity, it's probably not worth upgrading. But it's so shiny and it's new. So I have the Model 1. The Pixel 2 didn't really seem all that much better to me. The Pixel 3, intriguing, but not all that much better. And now it's going to be between either the Pixel 4 this year or the new iPhone next year, both of which
Same
seem
cameras,
as though,
Andy.
wow, they could be. Yeah. Yes. So, yeah, I mean, I really do think that so long as the screen's not broken, so long as like you've still got enough storage to do what you want to do, so long as you don't look at the brand new phone and think, wow, this new night sight feature or this new 3D touch feature or this new whatever, this will make my life so much better, because all the times I wasn't able to take a picture or all the times I couldn't really fumble with this in the cold or something like that. So yeah, I'm glad that more people are thinking that their default position should be, I'm not going to buy the new phone until again there's a toiletrical interlude and that negatively impacts the performance of this device. We're going to be back after this next message from our good close personal friend Leo Laporte.
If I may, you guys seem like you could use a little calm.com. Hi, it's Leo here telling you about our sponsor, Calm. If you're struggling to sleep these days, I know I am. 1 in 3 U.S. adults doesn't get enough sleep. It's a stressful life we lead these days. And if you're not sleeping enough, man, the next day, your brain isn't working. You're not feeling good. You're tired, but you can't sleep. And all your cognitive functions are impaired, problem-solving, decision-making. It's just not good. That's why you need Calm, the #1 app for sleep. I know you probably heard of Calm and think of it as meditation app, and it is that. The daily meditations with Tamara Levitt are amazing. But there's also some great sleep insights you can get at Calm.com. Sleep deficiency does serious damage, not just to your brain, but to your body as well. The sleepless are more prone to accidents, weight gain, depression. Don't let your sleepless nights turn into a sleepless lifestyle. With Calm, you'll discover a whole library of programs designed to help you get the sleep your brain and body needs. Soundscapes that relax you. I actually use the soundscapes for work, too. They help me focus. Over 100 sleep stories. I love these. You like having a bedtime story? Imagine Jerome Flynn from Game of Thrones or Stephen Fry or Matthew McConaughey reading to you. It's so relaxing. It's so nice. I love these sleep stories. Plus, I learn a lot from them. So if you want to seize the day, sleep the night with the help of Calm. Right now, MacBreak Weekly listeners get 25% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/MacBreak. That's the one I have, the Calm Premium. CALM.com/MacBreak. 50 million people have downloaded Calm. It's the #1 app for meditation, sleep, and relaxation. It's my favorite. Calm.com/MacBreak. Now that you feel a little calmer, back to the show.
Thank you, Leo. So big business news yesterday. Apple, according to Wall Street Journal, the Apple is in deeply along talks to buy out Intel's entire 5G modem business for about $1 billion is the number being floated around. And this would include they're going to get all of Intel's modem patents. There's going to be transfer of a great number of workers and personnel. So basically their entire German operation for building 5G modems would then belong to Apple. That kind of makes sense because although Intel was disappointing Apple mightily, they were disappointing Apple specifically. So they were disappointing Apple according to their needs and their terms. So you would think that whatever work that they have been doing on 5G would be a very, very good fit for Apple. Also, having read most of the court documents of the Apple versus Qualcomm lawsuit, I would think that Apple would like to manufacture its own 5G chips, if only to spite Qualcomm. Although the face that they would probably put on it is that we're Apple, we like to build everything. We don't like to rely on outside parties to make anything for us. Renee, does that seem to make sense?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, I hope Apple makes their own modems because it'll save us money." But quite often, when you can buy a generic modem from Qualcomm, that's the path of least payment. But what is super interesting about this is that Qualcomm can they can put the SoC, they can put the chipset with the modem and make it a single unit, and there can be efficiencies in that. But beyond that, Qualcomm just doesn't have the money to make anything that's not supremely popular. We've seen them struggle to make smartwatch chips, for example, because there's not a huge amount of customers for it. So it's like a chicken and an egg problem. But Apple does not do profit and loss on the component level. So they would love, and it's probably going to be similar to ARM, where they bought PA Semi, got the ARM IP license, and then made custom chips. They'll buy IBM's Infineon business, and they've already got the Qualcomm IP license. It was part of the settlement, and then start making their own custom modems. And that's maybe 5 years away, especially for 5G. But 5G right now is not very good, so we don't really care. But the idea is not just iPhones. iPhones is like the common ground, and even iPads. But if you can start putting them in watches and in earpods, which there's no business for Qualcomm doing that, but Apple could do that, and then Doc Rock would have his AirPods and not have to take his iPhone or watch with him, and that starts to get really exciting as we get into glasses and all that territory.
And the great thing about a 5G chip and mobile is that you could just, if Doc could basically take one of his AirPods out, put it on like a nice piece of pork or a steak, and make a couple of calls, and boom, it would like flash fry that nice thing. Now, you don't want to have the thing in your ear when you're getting a phone call, but yeah, no, I definitely see that. Would you like to have like a 5G ear thermometer that's more of a temperature positive interaction?
Yes, absolutely. I would love it if I could put a 5G chip in my AirPods. English, Mr. Rock. Yeah, I would absolutely love that, because again, you could get further away from your phone. A lot of times when I'm working in the workshop, I am using them as part ear protection, part, distract me from being bored while I am sanding for days. So I would absolutely appreciate other places where you could, stick in a 5G chip. And I see more and more cars are coming where your car is a hotspot. So we are going to see more and more sort of connected devices like that. And I think the one advantage too of Apple having all of this is in hand is they have better control, and that last minute pivots when there's something changes and they want to, do it right away. They don't have to go through 80 different hoops to get that done. They can just yell across the circular campus and be like, "Hey guys, down there in the Intel modem division, fix this or change that or make them purple." I like that. I like having it on it.
And it makes so much sense to just kind of go all in. Intel was saying that it's intensive and it uses too much resources for them to try to get to the 5G. They're not ready for it, so they were going to stop doing it. So Apple has practically unlimited resources. They can invest a lot in Intel's modem department to really just ramp up everything they want specifically for themselves. It's not participating in a company that's also making chips for all of the Windows computers in the world and all of the other phones. They get sort of almost this sort of exclusivity in like you're going to help us get where we want to go, and we're going to be sort of in charge of making sure that this happens, and we're going to throw all the money at it so that when it's ready, it's the best, it's what we wanted, it's designed exactly the way we want. It really just makes sense that Apple would try to make a move like this to be more in control of the chip modem of the future,
Yeah, and the timing seems pretty good too. The part of the Qualcomm settlement, or at least the announcements being made about the settlement, was that Apple was contracting to buy Qualcomm modems, 5G modems, for the next few years. But I think I made the joke that now we know exactly how long Apple thinks it would take for them to figure out how to make their own 5G modems. It's exactly the term in which they've agreed to buy these Qualcomm chips. And 5G it's not going to be like the switch from like 3G to LTE. This is a really, really big, tricky deal. And it really is going to be a few years before I think it becomes ubiquitous and where it's a service that you're kind of expecting to find in your community, and a chipset or set of antennas you're expecting to see in your phone. So by the time it becomes a really important thing, not just a luxury sort of designation for your highest end phone, Apple will be making not just 5G chips, but 5G that is integrated fully into absolutely everything that the iPhone is all about. Mark Gurman Stephen over at Bloomberg did a really long, interesting profile about Apple Senior Vice President Jeff Williams. That seems a lot like he's nominating him for presidential candidacy for some party. Jeff Williams does a lot of operations. He is in charge of the Apple Watch. He's in charge of a lot of other things at Apple. But a lot of this content is really about how he seems to be the heir apparent to Tim Cook. I pulled out a couple of quotes here. Jeff is here's former Apple executives that are going unnamed and anonymous. Quote, Jeff is 95% operations and 5% product, says someone who knows him. Quote, Apple has become an operations company. He's the closest thing at the company to Tim Cook, and you'll get more of that. If you think Cook is doing a good job, then it's a good choice. So he's in charge of all of Apple's hardware development and design. He does the weekly meeting in which you basically bend the knee to senior Apple management about this project that you're doing. The weekly review meeting, they say in the report, is formally called a, quote, new product review, unquote, but some employees refer to it as the, quote, Jeff review, as it is he who they need to impress. So it's interesting that this article would happen at this time. If it weren't Mark Gurman, I'd be wondering if, given that we're 1 week away from Apple's quarterly results call, I think, that is this something that Apple PR would like to put out there in case people are worrying, well, what happens when Tim Cook goes away? Is there someone who is being groomed to take his place? I don't know. Maybe I don't know if I'm being a little bit too cynical there. But Lory, did you read it? And what do you think about this line of secession that seems to be like being set up?
It's, you could take that a couple of different ways. It could just be, a profile piece on a higher up at Apple. I think that it's not uncommon to have profiles on different types of people. It is, like you're saying, it's sort of nicely placed that it's coming up right at like a week ahead of Apple's earnings report. Sort of especially right after Johnny Ive has left, it's sort of solidifying for Apple that there are people that are under control and in charge, and it's not just Tim Cook and a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing. That there's lots of people down the line that are also just as important. It's all of that. It's all of the above. It makes sense. There's always, especially in the Wall Street journals, they do profile pieces on execs and stuff like that all the time. So this coming out doesn't seem unusual. Perfectly positioned for right ahead of the Apple earnings call. I don't think it means anything. I think it's just something for us to kind of speculate on. Yeah. But in the end, it probably doesn't mean much of anything at all.
Well, we don't get paid for just saying, okay, let's go.
The amazing thing to me is that, the minute Tim Cook became CEO, they had a person waiting to replace Tim Cook, because that's one of the sole responsibilities of the board, is to make sure there's succession. And I remember there's a story inside Apple of Steve Jobs saying, Tim, you've got to go to marketing and work there for a while. And Tim going, I don't wanna. He goes, no, you're going to run this company one day. You've got to understand how all the pieces work. You're going down to marketing, and him sort of really not liking it, but going there and spending his time. And the minute Jeff Williams was given Apple Watch, he is, if Tim Cook gets hit by a bus, this is a person that you're all going to go to until we figure something else out. But it's only since Johnny left that I think mainstream media has sort of gushed on to Jeff Williams. Anyone who follows Apple day to day, this is not news. It hasn't been used in 5 or 6 years. But just like we're seeing all these profiles, like people who really don't know Jeff are doing all these profiles all of a sudden. First, they were incredibly wrong about Jeff, and now they're like, oh, maybe we were incredibly wrong about him. And then it's like, oh, Jeff is no Johnny. He'll be able to do this. And it's like, oh no, Johnny made gold watches and Jeff made sports watches, and maybe he's way more. And it's so scattershot and all over the place. And I think we're just gonna have to wait a couple of years and see how the person does with Jeff does with all these products, current and future.
Doc, what do you think of new dad?
I'm just going to try to earn some brownie points with all of our female listeners. I'm voting for Katie Cotton. Okay. I mean, Renee's 100% right. The minute one CEO takes over the reins, they already have the heir apparent. The funny part is reading these docs, I keep wanting to read it as heir apparent, and I'm like, what's Federici got to do with any of this?
Yeah,
but no, and so it is somewhat of a non-story in the fact that every company has succession plans, and they kind of sort of know what's going to go on. But as any event, things change. The industry climate might change. Apple being more service oriented might change some things. So there may be room and a place for a different person. So although he might be, Williams might be the first person in line, they probably have others in place. And should the course correction require such, and, Siri says, hey, turn left at the next corner, they also know that maybe it's Cotton, or maybe it's Q, or maybe it's, I forget Lisa's last name, the EPA
Jackson
lady. Yes. So, so it doesn't matter until Tim says, okay, I'm done. I'm going to go live in Hawaii, and I just got a new condo in Doc's building.
Hang out with Doc.
Yeah.
I'll hang out with Tim. I got to fix his mom.
I would watch that on Apple TV Plus in a heartbeat.
Jeff Williams was asked to leave his company. That command came from his CEO. He asked his friend Doc to move in with him. Can two nerds with a mutual collection of iPhones and Mac devices get along? Yeah. So there's if people are kind of like having a facial tick over the idea that he's a very Tim Cook sort of person, realize that Apple has a very homogenous sort of culture, particularly in the upper management area, in which you kind of go to Apple Business School. Actually, that's almost literally true, where they're not going to, you will not make it to that level in the executive suites by being a maverick who decides that we need to make sportswear. We suddenly need to pivot towards sportswear and luxury shoes. You have to. Basically, there's a secession is a handing off of not just a duty and a title, but also a way of doing things at Apple. So it's not really a problem that you're not going to get this a firebrand maverick person who's going to change everything at Apple. Given that Tim is when he does decide to hand over the reins, he will be handing over the reins of a very successful company, unless if he gets a really bad drinking problem really quickly, and also is really good at making exactly not just random decisions, but the worst decision possible, then maybe he will hand over only a $300 billion company. So it's interesting trivia to see this sort of stuff. Also interesting trivia is that this Mark Gurman article came up with a couple of interesting behind-the-scenes stories about the development of Apple Watch. Given that the man is in charge of Apple Watch, he tells a story about how they discovered that because of nickel as being part of the metal in the Apple Watch cases, it was causing allergic reactions in some of the people who are testing it out. And so he made the decision that, okay, we got to pull all of these watches. And this is one of the reasons why they were in such short supply, because they basically took all of these huge piles of manufactured watches and decided not to put them on the market. The article says that they decided to give them to employees instead. I don't know how good you might have felt as an employee to say, thank you for giving me the poison sumac infested Apple Watch. That's 15 years for the company. Okay, that's really, really nice. But it does show that how as much as we think that, oh well, this is a huge Apple company, they've got everything going right. If there's bad if they don't have enough product, it's because people are buying them way too fast. Well, sometimes bad things happen, and they don't issue a press release saying that, oh, we had a whole bunch of people over here in Cupertino who broke out in a wrist hive, and we decided we didn't want that PR hit ourselves. One thing that now I will say that I think that the gold Apple Watch was one of the dumbest things, certainly the most embarrassing and dumb thing that Apple has ever manufactured since the Steve Jobs era. I put it in a debate with my friends as possibly the dumbest tech product ever made with a serious intent to make it a success. The counter argument the friend made was Google Glass. I think there were arguments to be made on both sides, but I was very, very glad to, in a way that I'm not proud of, that it burned and failed. The same Mark Gurman report said that sales of the 18-karat gold edition were, quote, in the low tens of thousands, and they were pretty much down to zero sales after 2 weeks, which is why you didn't really have to wait that long.
5% of the market, which was scary in of itself.
That's true. Yeah, 18. Also, if you low tens of thousands is impressive just in numbers with the rest of the market, and then when you realize that was low tens of thousands times $12,000 per watch, as
Rolex is super happy they're out of that market.
Yeah, exactly. I could still go to my my high school reunion with my head held high if I said, "Oh yeah, my failed product that only netted $1.8 million for the company," and kept our chief designer happy and in his office for at least 3 more years. Well, we probably should get to picks of the week after another ad, but I've been ending each one of these acts with a group discussion that's related directly to the topic that we've been discussing. And so before we go, last topic for group discussion: who saw the new COMICON Picard teaser trailer, and how awesome do we all think it was? Renee, I want to hear from you
so
first.
Great.
I can't believe it.
So great. So great. The only thing I hated was a 2020 on it because I want it like tomorrow. I want to start watching that show immediately. But he looks phenomenal, and you see like I don't want to spoil anyone who hasn't seen the trailer yet, but there's like other characters even from other Star Treks that are involved in it, and it looks gorgeous, and they're setting it up in a very, very interesting way. And it just feels like the Star Trek you remember, but taking the next step forward. And after years and years of prequels, I'm so ready for them to just keep going.
Yes, I don't. Go ahead, Lory.
It does look really exciting. I love Star Trek. I call myself a Star Wars fan, and I actually watch Star Trek way more often than I watch Star Wars. And just seeing some of the characters that we get to see on screen again, hearing those voices that we recognize so well popping up on this. I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
Yeah.
I love this idea of moving forward with this very familiar Star Trek story that we've loved so much. I think I'm just like Renee. 2020 won't come soon enough when it comes to the Picard. It looks pretty phenomenal.
I'm definitely not buying the 2019 Star Trek. Okay, I know they've. Okay, I'm definitely waiting for the 2020 model.
Michael Burnham says, "Hey."
Yeah, I think that what I will just end it by saying that, and this is not. I don't mean to denigrate previous Trek. I'm just saying that I'm used to even the next generation being done on a certain budget and with a certain cheesiness in regards to sets and props. And even when they made the feature films, it was like, well, I know that we've got a feature film budget and we're going to be charging people $10 a whack to see this, but why don't we just take the same cardboard and Bondo props that we made for low definition television, just throw it on the 70 millimeter screen? I am not used to, you have actors who are absolutely 70 millimeter widescreen theatrical release good actors. It was so pleasurable, in addition to everything else, to see Patrick Stewart in a real movie playing that character with real sets and real effects, as opposed to, hey, I'm not going to go. I'm not getting into that. But there's nothing about this I don't love. And Lory, I'm pretty much like you. I'm primarily. I feel like I was raised in the religion of the Holy Trinity of Star Wars. But I married someone. I didn't actually marry him, but I'm saying. But imagine that you married someone who is a Trekkie, and so you found a lot to enjoy from that faith as well, and you're proud to raise your children as a conjoined household like that. But I'm probably I'm probably as excited. I'm probably as excited about this one. Go. Sorry.
You have to remember, people like us, we had Star Trek first, right? Star Wars is 77, right? So we had Star Trek first, and as a person as a person with Jean-Lucian hair follicles, I am absolutely ready for this. And another thing that just really, really excites me is one of my greatest memories from the aforementioned Macworld. Let's all pour out a little for Macworld. Is when I first met Rod Roddenberry and I got to talk to him, I was like, bro, you do not know how much your dad meant to kids like us. And at that time, he was just starting to meet the community. He was just starting to come to grips with what his father really meant to a bunch of people. He didn't kind of sort of knew. He knew what his dad did, but that wasn't a huge part of his life. So becoming friends with all of us, Trekkies, kind of blew his mind. And again, the old school Trekkie in me loves it. That Star Trek Live is happening very, very soon here in Vegas. So we're going to see a lot more of this coming up in the next couple of weeks, especially with all the people that are making the annual pilgrimage to Las Vegas. So I'm going to probably text Rod and tell him keep the pips nice and shiny for all of us.
Yep. Also, again, Macworld Expo, God rest his soul. John Delancey, who played Q, was a big Mac guy, and he was always at Macworld, always at parties, and always very approachable. And I feel as though I showed a lot of maturity that even like the fourth or fifth time I met him, I didn't say, Q, what the devil are you playing at? Return my ship. Even though every time I wanted to do a scene with Q, but I didn't. And now I'm actually kind of regretting that the last time I saw him at Macworld was good. Had I known, I would have definitely tried to do a scene with him, and he would have chuckled very, very patiently before edging away to the specter. We're going to do one more ad, and after that, we're going to get to your picks of the week. But before those picks,
thank you, Andy. MacBreak Weekly brought to you today by Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans, a good old friend. It's good to have him back. Finding the right house is hard. Finding the right mortgage can be easy. Rocket Mortgage is doing more to help you understand the home buying process so you get exactly what you need. Because it's not just some mortgage, any mortgage, it's your mortgage. Their team of mortgage experts are obsessed with finding a better way. That means their number one goal is to make the home buying process smoother for you. Rocket Mortgage has award-winning client service and support every step of the way. They're changing the game with their industry-leading online lending technology, and they've helped millions of Americans achieve their dream of home ownership. I've mentioned this before, but I'm glad to say they keep winning the awards. J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in customer satisfaction once again for primary mortgage origination. That's 9 years in a row. Also highest in mortgage servicing 5 years in a row. For more J.D. Power award information, you can go to jdpower.com. When you work with Rocket Mortgage, you get more than just a loan, because Rocket Mortgage is more than just a lender. Visit rocketmortgage.com/MacBreak and take the first step toward the home of your dreams. Get started online today at rocketmortgage.com/MacBreak. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030. Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans. Push button, get mortgage. Thank you, Rocket Mortgage, for your support of MacBreak Weekly. Now back to Andy and the gang.
And thank you, Leo Laporte, wherever you may be, wherever flag you might fly. I will salute that flag in the appropriate direction. We're going to start with picks of the week. Lory, what have you got for us this week?
Well, I'm just going to throw out this cute little thing that popped up a week or so ago. I'm a big fan of smart products for the home. And one of the gateway smart products is a plug, because you don't have to have a hub. You don't have to, plug in these $75 lights and all that stuff. It's just a plug, and it turns anything smart. Your lamps and computers and coffee pots and everything. Satechi actually just recently, a couple of weeks ago, launched a dual plug. There's a couple of neat things about this. One, the fact that it's that goes into your one plug, so you get extra ports, which there's not a lot of smart plugs out there that do this. But this actually you can control it separately. There are very few multi-smart plug ports out there that let you say, turn on plug 1 but not turn on plug 2. Usually it's just an all on or all off thing. So this one's pretty exciting. I don't have one in hand yet, so I'm not sure how well it pairs with all of my smart home accessories, but I am going to get one really soon. And if you need me to tell you what I think of it, I'm sure I'm going to have a review of it. So that's my pick of the week this week, just because if you haven't invested in anything smart home, but you're kind of on the edge and think maybe you want to give it a try, a smart plug is the way to go because it doesn't cost much. This one is a $60 one. Obviously, it's a little more expensive. They put a little more effort into it, but you can get a super cheap one. I think Amazon makes a $20 one that it supports. It doesn't have the HomeKit connection, but if you just want to try it, smart plugs are the way to go with that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, that's a good way to start and end home automation because once you get, even when you get fully invested, and I've got like all my lights are like smart bulbs. I've got like strips. I've got speakers everywhere, and then you start to get really, really offended that like your ceiling fan, you have to actually get up and flip a switch to do it. And so now you're turning off the power to the entire house. You can rewire this switch. Yeah. So so getting these smart plugs is going to be a very, very positive thing in people's lives. Excellent pick, Doc. What do you have for us?
Okay. So I have something that's known as a lit mobile power brick. Now, what's really, really cool about this thing, and when I first, this came up, Instagram has shopping now, right? So it popped up in my feed, and there may have been single malts involved, but I bought one, and I was like, "That's really stupid. Why did you buy this?" Well, the first thing it has is a really, really bright LED light that has like multiple doohickeys.
Like a light panel. Yeah.
But here's where it gets interesting. Slap the phone on it, and patong, it charges the phone. So if you're at the picnic and you don't need the light just yet, but your phone needs a bump, you just lay it on the top and it will go ahead and charge your phone. Now, also in there, it has 3 USB ports for charging various other devices, and it is a 20,000 milliamp hour, so you can charge 3 things and charge them a lot. But my favorite aspect of it, living here in Honolulu, is it's solar powered. So whenever you need to recharge it and you're out and about, you're doing that hiking thing or just laying on the beach, you turn it this way up when you don't need the light or charge your phone, and it will recharge itself. Incredibly, and I have no idea how they do it, it recharges itself in a little over an hour. Like, it's kind of ridiculous.
Wow.
So
20,000 milliamp and charging it an hour. I can't charge my 20,000 milliamp battery from AC in an hour.
Yeah,
it's
this thing is
that sunlight. It's that sunlight. It'll charge you up real fast.
Well, especially
like
here, we have, our sun rays are like direct, right? So Hawaii has really, 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 really powerful sun. So your mileage may vary on the charging part, but here's the cool part. If you go there, and I believe Andy showed it, it says that it's $79.95. Pop it in your cart and use this code, SAVE50. And the only reason why I know that is when I bought one, they said share this card with your friend so they can buy one for 50% off. Well, all how many million of you guys watch Twit? You guys are now my friends because it's Aloha style. So I hope Lit Mobile don't get mad at me, but use Save 50 and it'll come out to $39.98 and just get one. It's incredible. And it's built like a tank. It's rubber. They do, if you're afraid of, random companies you never heard of, there are about 90 different companies that make a similar thing on Amazon, but these guys were around the longest, so that's why I picked this one. And it is really a cool thing, especially if you are a traveler or outdoorsy type.
Excellent pick. And I have something similar, and I also have a 20,000 milliamp hour battery that I just got last week. Renee, if you want to spend the next 2 minutes choosing a power-related pick to replace what you've got in the show notes to make so we get like the full 4 lemons here. I decided I gave away my big Hungalunga 20,000 milliamp hour battery to somebody, partly because the stranger really needed it on the train, but also because I knew that I was getting sick and tired of having a micro USB charged battery. I really needed something that had USB-C USB-C instead. So here you got it. You got your USB-C that can be used to charge it or charge the battery or to charge other devices. It's also got 2 USB ports, but part of the magic of this device is what is inside the controller. So that number one, it's got enough juice and it's got the right wiring and protocols inside so that it can actually charge and power up many, not all, but many USB-C powered laptops. So it will charge a MacBook Pro. It will charge my Chromebook USB-C. That was one of the things I absolutely wanted to have because I was sick and tired of having to struggle with, like, I got 4% left. I'm hoping that I'm on one of the magic trains that the MBTA has that has like the power plugs. No, I don't. I've got the one that has the stupid blank sheet of aluminum stapled along the wall where the power plug should be, and now I can't do anything with my computer for this hour-long trip back. But it also has another really, really cool feature in that if you plug it into, if you got plug it in with USB-C, and then it's got like many power banks, a button you click it on the side, and we'll show you like what your level of charge is. However, if you double-click it when it's plugged in, it actually will also turn into a USB hub. So these are not just like charging ports; they will also be like regular USB-A ports connected to your MacBook or your Chromebook, and that's what absolutely positively sold it for me. They won't charge. They obviously won't charge as fast as they would if you would just had simply a charging only connector on it. But yeah, if you have like your AirPods plugged in, it will also more slowly, but will still charge your phone off of that. But the number of times, even just in the past week and a half, where I'm like, damn it, I don't have the right. Oh, wait a minute, I can't connect my camera to my laptop because it turns out that this is also a USB. My battery is also a USB hub, and for all that, it's not that expensive at all. It's called the it's by ZMI. The ZMI USB PD backup battery and hub costs $55.95 on the website. That's ZMIUSA.com. They'll also give you a $5 credit because they have to charge you for shipping. That knocks it down to $50. If you buy it on Amazon, it's up to you'll get it for $70. And I was super impatient, and I wanted it in 2 days instead of a week, so I bought it on Amazon. I'm very glad I did. You also get, of course, little case for it, and has a couple of USB cables on it. So very, very happy with it. Hope the person who got my old battery is very happy with it as well, even though she thanked me profusely, but she was just a pawn in my little game of, well, gosh, I need to replace that battery now, don't I? Because I can't go without one. I guess I'm just going to have a super great upgrade to this old Anker battery that I had. Okay, so we got 3 power-related items in a row. Renee, what do you got for your pick of the week?
So I got shamed, I got peer pressured, I got community actioned into changing mine. I decided to go with, I put a video in the show notes, and this is a popular, handsome, and Star Trek obsessed YouTuber who took 2 ginormous power supplies, batteries, chargeables with him to a small island that disappears. It's off the coast of somewhere near Andy's probable house. It disappears with the high tide, and his only mission was to be able to deplete them before the tide came in and he lost his footing on this little island. So both of them are similar. They each have their pros and cons, and Michael Fisher, Mr. Mobile, goes through all of those. But basically, they are ginormous batteries. They have USB-A, they have USB-C. I think only one of them has AC power, if memory serves. And that's always a little bit fraught because it has to internally convert to AC, and then your device is probably just going to convert it back to DC anyway. So it's not the most efficient way to charge. But if you just need something that only has AC power, it can be a lifesaver when you're in those situations. But if you decided that you absolutely do not want a battery that you can fit in a pocket, almost probably cannot fit in a backpack, but you want to carry it around with you because you can't afford to go one of 14 days without charging your very hungry phone, then check out his video and pick the one that is absolutely right for you. And now I feel like a good power charging citizen, Andy. We're
the 4 musketeers of power. Yeah, no, I'm not even joking here. I never feel as stress-free or as like undefeatable as when I go out of the house and I have a fully charged, really big battery. I know that I don't have to worry about finding an outlet for the phone. I don't have to worry about charging up the tablet or anything like that. And yeah, I would like to have one of those batteries you recommended that's about as big as a 6-pack or as big as a car battery.
Yes.
Before we say goodbye, let's go around the horn and please, everybody, plug away. Let's help everybody to find the wonderful work that you're doing outside of this podcast microphone. Renee, by any chance, did you do any writing or any video making in the past week that you could tell people about?
Yeah, I did a quick story on the Apple ECG app 6 months later in a video just showing people how to set it up, how to use it, where it is, how it works, what the restrictions are, what you can and can't do with it. And I also did one, kids these days, they'll know Lucifer from Netflix saying, no, Lieutenant, you're boring. But those of us, those vintage models, as Doc would call us, we remember Willow from Buffy being bored now. So just sort of broke down the reasons why, not just the iPhone, but the Galaxy, the Moto, the Pixel, all of these phones tend to look very similar for year after year. And it's not that they're not innovating, it's just that they're innovating in many ways that don't involve putting nodules and triangles and donut-shaped things on the fronts of your phones. So all of that is up at youtube.com/Vector.
Super duper. And Lory Gill, where are you gigging or where are you writing right now?
I'm writing on iMore all the time.
Of course.
And we do have a show this Saturday night at our local Cafe Colonial, and it's called the Speed Fest. So it's going to be a bunch of bands playing a bunch of short sets of really fast music. So that's my this weekend with Sickburn. If anybody's in the greater Sacramento area and wants to come out. Otherwise, head over to iMore and just look for me. I'm writing about smart things this week and Apple cards and fun things like that.
And Doc Rock, thank you so much for coming in and filling our empty seat. We've been doing podcasts together for a while on the used to be the British Mac Network. Now they're calling themselves the British Tech Network, probably for tax purposes. I don't ask about it. We're just hired hands. We're not even full-time employees. I'm so glad we got to do a show together. That didn't involve my having to translate like naughty words in English into naughty words in the UK. But where else can people see you, read you, experience you, give you the love that you deserve?
Well, first, I will be taking a first round of funding for my new application, LG, not to be confused with Lucky Gold Star, but instead Lory Gill, Voice of Reason Pack, the LG VOR. So I will be setting that up on Kickstarter very soon. First of all, you can find me almost anywhere on the internet as DOC. ROCK. The extra K in the title there would mean I park boats in my Okole. Look that word up in your Hawaiian dictionary. And I do not park boats in my Okole. I am yet a human being. Mostly you can find me, again, all over the internets under that tag. And I am rededicated myself back to my YouTube channel. That is also youtube.com/DocRock. And I get into tech, travel, and lifestyle tips. Sometimes it's reviews. Sometimes it's just kind of showing you how to do odd things because I am an odd fellow. So I really enjoy making YouTube videos, and I had neglected it for a while. So I decided I wanted to dive back into the YouTube thing because I really hate everyone thinking that YouTubers are just like teen angst. There are some of us plus 50 angst people out there that are maybe 50 plus 50 in age, but still yet teenager in the brain. So I love to create videos. And now that I'm traveling a lot, I want to be able to share my tech style with how you can travel better or just do things in and around the house better. And yeah, I mean, it's a great honor to be here. Andy, I love working with you. You always crack me up. And it's good to be near. The last time I saw Renee in the flesh was the aforementioned Macworld back in like 2014 when she's no longer with
pouring
us.
it out again.
Anna Tefka.
Right? So it's really, really great. Thanks, Lory, for being my voice of reason. I will be hitting you up with a friendier very soon.
Sounds good.
And I am Andy Anatko. If you can spell my last name, you're one up on me from age 4 to 17. But I'm Anatko on Instagram, Anatko on Twitter. I've also got a blog at anatko.com. Largely neglected, but very, very much loved despite the neglect. But I'm also the tech contributor to WGBH Boston Public Radio. My next thing is going to be on Friday, and I think it's at 12. I'll check out Twitter for the actual time. I think it's 12:30 to 1. But if you're in the Boston area, go. We're doing it from the WGBH NPR studios at the Boston Public Library, and it's in a coffee shop and everything. So get yourself a cookie, get yourself a Fresca, sit down and watch me gesticulate with my hands, even though I know that there's no cameras involved anywhere. But that's going to do it for us for this week. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we have had, much fun as we've had doing this. But unfortunately, fun time is over. Get back to work. Break time is over.